In solidarity with the Ukrainian people during this difficult time, we will sing the Ukrainian national anthem. The choir will be singing around you. You will see the translation. We'll sing it in Ukrainian.
I never imagined we'd be singing the Ukrainian national anthem as an opening to our worship service, but it's entirely appropriate. It really feels right this Sunday to be showing a sense of solidarity with people in a war-torn land who are being invaded by an aggressor. So that was a great way to begin. To gather as a community, to realize that we come together for mutual support. So welcome to this congregation. It's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy week, and I know that a lot of us are scared and upset about what's happening in the world. But when we come to be with one another, it really helps. We ground one another. We provide support and love and encouragement. So I'm so glad to see this room filling up a little more every Sunday after the pandemic. It's not quite to where it used to be, but we're getting there, and it feels so good. It feels so good to see you here this morning. I got a chance to get out and greet a few of you, but I want to continue doing that after the service today. But I would like to invite you all to take just a moment to stand, greet those around you, say hello. It's always important that whenever we have a service here, that nobody comes and feels like they're left out, they weren't included. So that's why it's so important for us to have a nice welcome. So would you take just a moment to look around and greet one another and say hi. I always feel so rude when I interrupt your conversations like this, but just remember, you can continue that wonderful conversation just started. So please do so after the service and join us for our fellowship hour. And for now, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
We are here today to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion, to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. Please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. We light these chalices to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We'll get a light here in just a minute. It is our practice to light 3 chalices each Sunday. The first is for this community, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light our second chalice for our friends in our partner church in Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And during this time of conflict so near Romania, let us hold our neighbors in that area of the world close to our hearts. We light our third chalice for our children and youth in our religious education program and for all the children of the world. Please join us as we sing the flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Okay, if everybody young and young at heart could come join me up front. We're going to read a story today. Today we're wearing orange. Can anybody tell me what principle that represents? Offer fair and kind treatment to all. Okay? And last week we wore red for respect. Thank you. Okay. This week we are learning about the golden rule. Does anybody know what that is? The golden rule. Okay. We're going to learn about that today. Okay. A boy and his grandfather stood on a city sidewalk looking up at the words printed on a billboard. "Grandpa, what does that say?" the boy asked. "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." People all over the world call those words the golden rule. What does it mean? The boy wanted to know. And why is it golden? It means this: treat people the way you would like to be treated. It's golden because it's so valuable and a way of living your life that's so simple it shines. Like gold. Yes. You, me, anyone can practice the golden rule. A rule that's the same for children and grown-ups? Same rule. There aren't too many rules like that. Very few. And it's for people everywhere? Everywhere. Whatever their religion, people find the idea of the golden rule in their holy books, Grandfather said. Christianity says you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. Judaism says, what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow humans. Islam says, hurt no one so that no one may hurt you. Hinduism says, this is the sum of duty, to do nothing to others which would cause them pain. Buddhism says, do not do to others what would hurt you. The Shawnee tribe says, do not kill or injure your neighbor, for it is not he or she that you injure yourself. The boy and his grandfather sat on a park bench. So, Grandpa, how can I start to practice the golden rule? You begin by using your imagination. My imagination? You imagine how someone else feels. For instance, a new child who is joining your class. How do you think that boy or girl is feeling? New kids always look scared. Would you be scared if it was you? Oh, yes. What would make you feel better? If someone smiled at me. So, to practice the golden rule, you would smile at the new kid. You've got it. I bet you can think of other ways you'd like to be treated. And ways you wouldn't want to be treated. How do you feel when you're teased or bullied? How do you feel when you're teased or bullied? Sad. Sad. Yes. Anything else? Lonely. Mad. Yes. Small. I feel small. Sad, mad, small. Do you like that feeling? No. Neither does anyone else. The boy thought for a moment about the golden rule. I see. There are lots of things I can do. I should tell the truth because I don't like being lied to. I want people to listen to me, so I should listen to other people. When I'm sick or when I'm tired, sometimes I need help. So I should offer my help to those who need it. You're getting the idea, Grandfather nodded. The boy looked at his grandfather. Practicing the golden rule seems like it can be hard. I said it was simple. I didn't say it would always be easy. Grandpa, the boy said, the golden rule is a very big thing, isn't it? Very big. And very small. and very old. It's been around for thousands of years. Thousands of years? Well then, I don't think everyone is practicing the way they should. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many problems between people, between countries. You're right, my boy. I wonder how things would change if everyone lived by the golden rule. I think people would be nicer, kinder. They'd act better toward their family and friends, and even strangers. What if countries lived by the golden rule? Grandfather asked. Well, then people wouldn't want to hurt each other because they don't like being hurt. Maybe there wouldn't be wars. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Wonderful, Grandpa. But you can't make everyone in the world practice the golden rule. There's only one person who can ask to do that. Me? You. It begins with you. The end. Okay, if everybody can join, stand up in the middle and make a love arch for us to go through, we will be on our way. Thank you.
Wherever you walk, walk in love. Wherever you walk, walk in peace. Wherever you walk, walk in beauty all around you. Our hearts go with you.
I think that really we're done. I mean, the golden rule, that's good enough. So let's just go join the kids down there. That would be okay. I invite you now to just be in this moment. Be with the breath. Be in this moment, feeling your sense of life in this world at this moment. Let us settle down that we might discern more clearly the deeper meanings and higher purposes of our lives. Even though we cannot hear the guns and the missiles and the bombs, we know that at this moment, people across the Ukraine are hearing these destructive sounds all too well. So now another war is being added to the long chronicle of conflicts that afflicts us. Today, this morning, March the 6th, 2022, our hearts go out to those in the Ukraine and to people in all war-torn lives. Our hearts go out to all those whose lives have been disrupted or ended, who are being forced into exile or down into bomb shelters. And so we think of all those in our world who suffer. And let us work now for the day. Yearn and hope and pray for the day, far off though it may be, when the guns of war will be silent, and all we will hear is the steady heartbeat of love in our lives. Let us remember that the work of peace begins with discovering the compassion within ourselves. Compassion is our path. We look at life through the lenses of compassion, and it shows us much to do. Elizabeth Gilbert writes, "In the end, though, maybe we must all give up trying to pay back to the world, the people in this world who sustain our lives. Maybe we must all just give up trying to pay back the people of this world who sustain our lives. In the end, maybe it's wiser to surrender to the miraculous scope of human generosity and to just keep saying, thank you, forever and sincerely, for as long as we have voices. And so we say thank you to one another. We say thank you to the Spirit of life. We say thank you. For gratitude is our path. Compassion and gratitude.
Good morning. I'm Lorna Youngs with Lifelines Lay Ministry. As you know, Lifelines is here to provide additional support to any of you in the congregation or your family who's in need. We can be contacted by sending an email to lifelineslayministry at uusalem.org, or just call the office and they'll forward the information to you. Today we have no joys and sorrows, or joys and concerns that have been entered in on the website. And you can enter your joys and concerns by going to our website and clicking on joys and concerns, and a form will pop up for you to be able to share what you are concerned or joyful about. The other way in which you can share is through our book that we have out in the foyer, as we used to do before we were homebound from COVID. And there is one written concern today from Carolyn Patterson. Hoping the unhoused find a place to go since camps are being broken up and they are very scared and confused. Send your love and compassion. And want to remind you that next week is Compassionate Connection, where those of you who are just hurting a little and in need of a little bit more of a direct compassion can join us at the front of the congregation after the service, and we will listen and provide compassion to you. Thank you very much.
Please join me in singing "O Liberating Rose," number 130 in the gray hymnal. You may remain seated.
Your words are tied with prophecy. Your
The reading today is Hello, My Name Is by Reverend Naomi King, who I was surprised to learn is the daughter of author Stephen King and has served as a gay activist and UU minister on the East Coast. She was born with a chronic deficit of the hormone adrenaline. When we introduce ourselves to another person, we usually extend our hand and summarize ourselves with one word, usually, hello, my name is Naomi. These are the kinds of face-to-face greetings that initiate relationships, that open our hearts and act as a bridge of connection from one person to the next. But there's another kind of one-word naming that goes on in our larger society that burns bridges, locks down relationships, and keeps us from living our promises to each other. We know these words. These are not words I need to repeat here, for repeating them simply gives them more power. But they're the more horrible terms equivalent to shark and monster and demon. These are words denying inherent dignity. These are words that undermine and attack inherent worth. For these words have one powerful, hurtful message. You are not worthy. You are not human. You are not enough. Throughout my life, says Naomi King, I've had plenty of those words, these labels ascribed to me. So many that although I may stretch out my hand and say, hello, my name is Naomi, what I feel I'm saying at times is, hello, I'm worthless. Hello, I'm bad or wrong. I came into our religious community because we promise to counter these messages. I am part of a religious community because we promise not to reduce each other to terrible labels, not to strip each other of our humanity, not to ascribe levels of worthiness to one another. Most of us need to celebrate life, to feel our inherent worth, to be restored, our dignity, to practice justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships. Most of us yearn to say, hello, I am somebody, and to be greeted, hello, somebody, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Most of us hunger for affirmation and celebration in who we are and in the gifts and blessings we bring the world. Most of us come here to be greeted as the loving, generous, compassionate people we are. Each of us has at least one blessing. Now, I believe each of us offers many blessings to this world in who we are. But sometimes we and our world, even our beloved community, might have a difficult time affirming and seeing those blessings. We are all blessings to this world. Our work of building bridges of connection by finding and naming and affirming those blessings we are is the work of nurturing our spirits and healing our world.
Thank you, Gloria. A lot to think about there. You may remember it was a few months ago in the fall that there was a story in the news. It was about a 96-year-old German woman, and she was fleeing the police to avoid going to juvenile court, where she had to face some very serious charges for crimes she allegedly committed when she was 17, 18 years old, before many of us here were even born. There was something both comical and sad in this image of a nonagenarian. I mean, she's in a wheelchair on the lam, getting apprehended by the authorities at the train station. She was trying to run away. She wanted to be spared the humiliation of having to appear in court, but German law mandated that she had to be there to face charges of being an accessory to 11,412 murders in her role as a stenographer and a typist for the Nazi commandant of the Stutthof camp in Poland during World War II. So she was office staff at a concentration camp. And the prosecutors maintained that the cries of the Jews being forced into the gas chambers were clearly audible, that she knew what was going on there, and that she was complicit in these tremendous, horrible crimes, horrendous crimes against humanity. And she acknowledged that the murders took place in the camp, but she disputed bearing criminal responsibility. When I read about this woman and the role she played as an 18-year-old girl, 18-year-old girl, I fell to wondering about our societies, not just American societies, but our societies in the world. Our societies need to punish wrongdoers, and how it is that we identify who they are and who they aren't, and what we imagine that the outcome of a punishment should be. Does it serve to restore moral balance in our society, or does it merely serve vindictive purposes? In particular, did it serve some purpose to haul this old woman to court for what she was alleged to have done as a girl? The short answer, I think, is yes. I think it served a purpose in reminding the world of the shocking, historical, heartbreaking reality of the Holocaust, which some, in the face of all the evidence, deny ever happened. The Holocaust did happen. And attempts to deny this compounds the injustice, because those millions who died, if we don't remember, will be forgotten. And there will be future perils, and we'll have to learn the tragic lessons all over and over again. So even as I say this, however, I can't help but be aware of all that's going on in our world. Of course, there's the war in the Ukraine that's broken out this week, but I'm also aware of more silent, insidious things going on in our world. I'm aware of the Chinese government's current, and the U.S. government has claimed this word as the proper use of this word, genocidal campaign, the Chinese government's genocidal campaign of forced birth control and sterilization carried out against the Muslim minority Uyghur people. That's happening right now. That's happening right now. I guess it's maybe not as monstrously evil as the Holocaust was. They're not throwing people into ovens, but it's evil enough. And it's aiming at the same goal, the extermination of a people. And we, the larger world, we know about this. But we don't really do a whole lot about this beyond reproaching the Chinese in certain international forums. It didn't stop the Winter Olympics from happening. It doesn't stop American corporations, from the NBA to Disney, for overlooking all this so they can do business in the lucrative Chinese market. That's the most important thing for them. And so you have to wonder, we know this is going on. Does this make us all complicit? Well, maybe not quite as complicit as this German woman who was on the site where these crimes against our humanity were committed. But it makes me feel queasy about passing judgment on others. And I I shudder to imagine how posterity is going to judge us for many things. So I've tried to imagine the role I might have played if I was an 18-year-old male in Germany during the Nazi regime. Just as was this elderly German woman on trial, if I had grown up during that time, I would have been raised in a country that had degenerated into a racist political cult, where independent thought and feeling was strictly verboten, forbidden, and unquestioning allegiance to the Fuhrer was expected, and any dissent could land you in a concentration camp. In that historical context, had I been compelled to participate, say, by being a concentration camp guard, would I have resisted, or would I have played the role assigned to me by society? It's impossible to say, really, but I have a hard time imagining that I would have done anything heroic or exceptional in these circumstances. As a native Southerner with Confederate ancestry, I am always aware by nature of how an entire society can be swallowed up by a spiritually obscene narrative. Some Germans did resist as best they could. I don't know what I would have done. It's so speculative and hypothetical. Most Germans did not resist the genocidal campaign, and they probably knew a lot more about it than they were willing to acknowledge. And yet so many did not face any consequences. So many Germans did not resist this genocidal campaign, and yet so many did not face any consequences for their roles in the Nazi war machine, and they melted back into post-war life. But some, like this poor woman who played a relatively minor role in the Holocaust, are finally held to account for their actions, and the question naturally arises, is justice being served? And equally important is the question, does this make a recurrence less likely? I was reading about this case. I was reading all the editorials and all the commentary that I could find, and the most cogent argument I found for hauling this woman to court over 70 years after her alleged crime was that shaming such people is a necessary practice so that there can be moral recognition of their monstrous transgressions. There's something to that. There's something to that. I clearly came to understand the need for such moral recognition some years ago. There was a man on death row. I was doing I had a small UU ministry thing over at the state prison over there, and then word got up to me. There was a man on death row. He wanted to have me pay a visit with him. And so I did, and I sat there. We were separated by the thick glass, and years earlier, he told me that he and an accomplice, I knew about this, that years earlier, he and an accomplice were convicted of murdering a young German woman who was hitchhiking, traveling through Oregon. And my heart ached as I thought of this precious girl's life cut short by this man that I faced through the thick glass. And I could hardly bear to imagine all the pain this brutal loss had certainly caused her family. And here I was facing this man, and he explained to me that it was his accomplice who had committed the murder. He just didn't stop it. And besides, he explained, he had had a very hard childhood, and he never knew much love himself. And it was a sad story. And he was in poor health, and he had diabetes, and it wasn't a happy situation at all. But I couldn't help but sense that this man was still not able to face the truth of his complicity in this crime. Later on, not too long after that, I was asked to visit another person on death row, and this was even more chilling. This man displayed all the characteristics of a psychopath. He would never own up to the terrible things that he had done. And it felt incomplete after these visits for me. It feels incomplete when nobody owns up, when terrible acts get buried or forgotten or rationalized away or denied. A deep wound festers. So you can understand the impulse to condemn those complicit in the worst crimes, and you can understand the desire to punish them, at the very least, to shame them as a form of punishment. Shame. How often does shame really hit its target and do its work? How often? It often misses its desired target. I know a lot of people who feel ashamed of themselves and ashamed about things, and I think, no, you shouldn't feel ashamed. You shouldn't feel. Sometimes shame hits the wrong target. And sometimes it hits the right target, but at the wrong time, even when it gets to the right person. I think of that aged Khmer Rouge leader on trial in Cambodia for crimes he really did commit many years ago. But his younger self has faded into grayness. And the perpetrator has fuzzy memories and rationalizations for all the deaths that he ordered at Tuol Sleng prison. It's now a genocide museum, Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. And even when he is convicted, there's little sense of satisfaction that justice has been served. And similarly, when I read of this old German woman being publicly humiliated and then facing a gauntlet of young demonstrators outside the courtroom, and they were further shaming her, saying that she's a Nazi, a fascist, somebody only worthy of scorn, somebody who should be perpetually shamed. In the midst of this, to me it felt like something was out of balance and something was unresolved. The young protesters outside the courthouse in Germany were full of outrage. And in the face of horrendous crimes against our humanity, a cry of outrage is a natural expression. The world can be a dangerous place. And anything that threatens the common good, that tramples upon our decency and goodness, that perpetrates such an evil, should be named. It should be condemned. But outrage is dangerous stuff. It's very dangerous stuff. Outrage has proven to be a psychologically addictive substance, a dangerous drug that can eat away at the soul, because it's perversely gratifying to be able to point the finger at the wrongdoers of the world, to be filled with outrage, to loathe them, and to yearn for them to be punished. Such outrage is always selective and always outwardly directed, because outrage is no friend of honest introspection, and it tells you that all that is wrong in the world is to be found out there. It's all somebody else's fault. Outrage, selective outrage, tempts you to paint a black and white picture of the world. And this kind of thinking is humankind's greatest, absolutely greatest spiritual pitfall, because it leads people to imagine that all evil is external to oneself and one's tribe, and it can be eradicated. Evil can be eradicated by defeating the enemy. Once you've defeated that evil enemy, all will be well. You know, the Nazis knew about how to stir up outrage. They did it all the time. They stirred up great feelings of outrage and hatred against the Jews with baseless claims about the threat that they posed to Gentile Germans. They knew how to stir up that sense of outrage. They were really good at it. Speaking of threats to us all, We've lived with a sense of threat for all our human history. There's always some kind of threats. And there was centuries ago, our Puritan forebears in New England were wary of a great threat that they believed existed in their new world. And it all came to a head in 1692 when a monstrous evil was said to have suddenly manifested, and people were full of outrage and the threat that it posed to all of them. This evil would not be tolerated. And so they rooted it out. The perpetrators were apprehended. They were tried and convicted in a court of law. They were condemned to death and hanged in the public square. These people who were going to do an evil thing to the rest of the world. They were hanged in a public square. Outrage put them up there. Outrage put them up there. Judgment, the judgment of other people, wanting to get rid of evil in the world, put them up there on the scaffold. Most of them up there on the scaffold who got hung were women. A few of them were men. They were judged to be witches who had chosen to betray God and serve Satan by ensnaring the souls of others. And that was, of course, if anybody would do such a thing, is a wicked, wicked thing to do. But in fact, it wasn't a wicked thing to do. It was a wicked, wicked delusion, as we know today. People were so full of fear and anger and outrage, they could not see the truth of the matter until after they cut the bodies down from the scaffolds. Oops. There was one young judge in this trial. His name was Samuel Sewall. And he soon recognized what had happened. That in his zeal to eradicate evil, that he and the rest of the court had in fact perpetrated it. And he felt profound remorse and sorrow for the role he had played in this travesty of justice. Judge Sewall saw how outrage and the desire to shame, to condemn and punish, the impulse to see evil in others and not in oneself, he saw how that this had morally blinded him. It had morally blinded him. And he felt absolutely dreadful. And he didn't know what to do. So to atone for the damage, you don't atone for this kind of damage, but he tried. And to attempt to atone for the damage caused by his zealous attempts to eradicate evil, Judge Sewall went to his minister and handed him a note and said, I want you to read this note in front of the congregation every year on the same date of the trial, or some date that was significant. And Judge Sewall, while this letter was being read, a letter of apology asking for forgiveness, atonement, Judge Sewall would stand before the congregation with his head bowed in honest contrition, seeking forgiveness. Imagine how it would be if our systems of justice and accountability encouraged such moral awakening rather than selectively meting out punishment. Imagine if instead of singling out only individuals for shaming and punishment, we also created clear pathways for restoration and forgiveness, for we all stand in need of that. Imagine if, when we punish those who harm society, that we also use the opportunity to look inward with humility and recognize that we all have within us the capacity to do good or to do evil. And those who lack that insight in their lives, in the way we live, those of us who lack that insight, when we lack that insight, we're spiritually blind. Would you join me for a period of spiritual reflection, time of prayer. As we live our lives day by day, it's so hard to get along with other people. There's much anger and confusion and judgment and shame and sorrow. So hard for us to live together in peace. And yet the journey to that place that we all yearn to go begins with each one of us, humbly aware of the full extent of our own humanity, mindful not to judge too harshly, being mindful to be compassionate and kind to others. We walk the path day by day. The temptation to judge and condemn and shame others will present itself. And here is another opportunity for us to look inward and discover how we are part of the problem, how we as individuals have a role to play in bringing more peace and love and justice into our world. And so in the quiet moments of our lives, let us reflect. Let us look deeply and honestly at ourselves and at others, that we might find ourselves coming together in the spirit of love. May it be so. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you. The following comes from Reverend Erica A. Hewitt. The offering we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice the Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. Each month, UUCS contributes to a Share the Plate recipient, and this month's recipient is the Partner Church program. Our partner church is, of course, located in the tiny village of Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania. Many of us have had the opportunity to travel to Romania, myself included, and to attend their small, very old church and become friends with their townspeople. Their recently retired minister, Shandor Sen, has visited this congregation and has become good friends with Reverend Rick and with many people in this congregation. We also have provided very necessary, mostly medical items to the townspeople of Šimenfalva. Your support of the Partner Church program will allow this congregation to continue to provide much needed communication with and services to our beautiful friends in Romania, especially now as they feel the threat of invasion at their borders. We also contribute each month to the Marian Polk Food Share, and of course, you are invited to offer your monthly pledge. If you're present today, you may leave your offering in the baskets which will be passed shortly. And if you are, or you may go online to uusalem.org and follow the prompt, which allows you to contribute online. We thank you for your kind generosity.
Time will say nothing, but I told you so. Time only knows the price we have to pay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. If we should weep when clouds put on their show, if we should stumble when musicians play, time will say nothing, but I told you so. There are no fortunes to be told alone, because I love you more than I can say. If I could tell you, I would let you know. The winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reasons why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing, but I told you so. Perhaps the roses really want to grow. The vision seriously intends to stay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. Suppose the lions part up and go, and all the brooks and soldiers run away. Will time say nothing, but I told you so? If I could tell you, I would let you
Thank you, Laura. This morning, Reverend Rick will light our social justice candle as a reminder of the many ways this congregation extends support, caring, and kindness to this community and to the wider world. As we extinguish our chalices this morning, let us remember to practice our first principle, to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of each person. Remember that words matter and love wins. Our congregation's pledge drive, Growing Our Community, is underway. Pledge team members will be available with laptops in the fellowship hall after the service to assist with filling out online pledge forms. And now we will hear a testimonial from one of our longtime members, Eleni Smith. Hope I got that right. Oh, thank you. Eleni is going to talk about what UUCS has meant to her over the years.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. In 2011, there were dark clouds on the horizon of my life. I was very worried, expressing concern to friends, and I had a very good friend who was a Buddhist priest, and she said to me, "You need to find a spiritual home." And with my accompanying eye roll, I said, I cannot imagine going back to my family's religious tradition. And she said, well, you need to find something. So I took an online quiz. What religion are you? 50 possibilities. At the very end, number 50 was my family's faith tradition. Sounded right to me. And number 1 was UU. So I decided to come here and explore. But in 2012, everything that I was worrying about actually happened. My personal life, my professional life started to unravel. But I still came here and I sat back there every Sunday and cried through every service for months. Could barely tell anybody my story, distraught, but everybody was very chill with me. They were very kind. I was looking for refuge, which is what first comes to mind when I think about my journey through UU. Eventually, I was able to reach out to the Lifelines ministry, take advantage of Compassionate Connections, and I joined some discussion groups to explore spirituality even more. And I did find that refuge, here with people who barely knew me, but understood that I needed that. Reverend Rick was here for me. So many people offer that refuge. And by 2013, I became a member here. At this time, I realized that there was something else that I could find here, and that was opportunity. I joined the microfinance team. I sat on the board for 2 years, which provided me a very steep learning curve there. And now I am currently corresponding with an inmate in prison in North Carolina through the Worthy Now Prison Ministry Program, which I had to write down because I never remember it. I grew within the community and realized that my opportunity to participate and to give of myself is always here, always available to help me do more. And it was through these experiences that I have come to understand that I have a responsibility here. A responsibility to do my best to see that this community survives and thrives, to help the UUCS community grow, to help the Salem community grow, and to help the community of the world be a better place. And not only is it important that I show up, it is also important that I contribute monetarily as much as I possibly can. As a member of the pledge team, I would encourage everyone to contribute as much as they can to assure that the UUCS continues to support everything our principles represent. Now, to paraphrase Susie Orman, she speaks a lot on generosity. When we hold our hands closed, holding tightly to what we have, they are not open to receive. Giving is not about what you're going to give back. Giving represents gratitude, and it represents the values we all hold dear. So I'd encourage everyone, please give generously. Thank you.
This is just a reminder that you can go online and look and see all the wonderful things that are happening in the life of this community. So please do check our announcements. Next Sunday, I'm going to be speaking in McMinnville. It's been a long time since I've spoken to the Unitarian Universalists in McMinnville, but Sarah Pickett will be in the pulpit, and that'll be great. So please do come next Sunday. Please do check out our website to see all the different programs and activities that you can get engaged with. So thank you.
Our closing hymn is number 18, What Wondrous Love. Please stand as you're able.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, my
From Cynthia Lantham, we get this. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues until we are together again, friends. Be strong, be well, be true, be loving. And now let us join together in saying our closing words. May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come. Blessed be.